it down some. I'm seeing a lot of sky. I mean, the ceiling's nice, but the people are slightly more interesting. There you go. All right, Steve, do you want me to take you out? That's my husband, Steve, you're seeing there.
Please take me out.
He's called the support staff. All right. You are now officially hidden. Steve, I'm going to open up, against my better judgment, I'm going to open up Adium just in case you need to talk to me.
We need the volume down in the
other room.
I'm too loud? No one ever accuses me of being too quiet.
Yeah, but it's distorting the sound. No, it might be.
All right, okay. I think we got it covered on both sides now.
All right, to anybody who's watching on the outside, this is the Dallas Apple Corps meeting. Do my own quick little introduction there. All right. So you going to introduce me, or shall I introduce me?
Sorry, we lost the audio for a minute there.
Oh,
okay,
no.
now we got it back.
All right.
So, thank you all for attending our Apple Corps meeting this month. This month, we'd like to introduce a guest speaker that is broadcasting from California. So, I'd like to thank her very much for waking up earlier than us to give this presentation to us here. So, I'd like to introduce Allison Sheridan.
Morning, everybody. So I met John and John at Macworld this year when I did a presentation called Digital Disaster, Life After Death. And I can't believe this many people are excited to come hear about death. I promise to make it more fun than it sounds. Let me do a quick little introduction of who I am. Let's see, let me flip over to here and show you my website. So I do the NosillaCast Mac podcast. My tagline is, it's a technology podcast with a just like Macintosh bias. In other words, a giant Macintosh bias. And I do all kinds of tech gear articles. I actually like to mess with people. I've bought a Windows phone recently just to see what messes with people, to see what it's like. I do a lot of blog posts, but each of these blog posts goes together into the final presentation of the audio podcast. So it comes out once a week on Sunday nights, and as you can see from the top, second to top link here, I am on show number 491, and it's been running for over 9 years, so I have a lot of fun with it, and it's pretty clear I'm probably not giving up anytime soon. And also, I'm really big into doing tutorials. So on the left-hand sidebar, you can see there's a lot of tutorials in here. There's, I don't know, like 150 of them. Pretty much anything you want to do, I've probably written a tutorial about it. So I'm going to flip back to me for a second. Tell me, is your sound okay? Steve's telling me that he's getting cyborg sound.
A little garbled.
Garbled, okay. Let me see, what could be causing that? Got a lot of Google Chrome going on. I don't see Crash Plan running or anything. So it wasn't garbled a minute ago, huh?
No, the whole time's been garbled. And static.
I'm sorry, say again? Let's see. I don't know what. The only thing that could cause that. Let me do one little trick here. Let me change this to make sure it's just. I can isolate my mic myself. Did that change anything?
It helped.
Helped. Okay, I'm going to need to flip that back. What I just did was I switched to just my microphone. There's some audio going to come out of GarageBand. Okay, Steve is saying that did not fix it, so I might as well put it back the way it was. That's going to give us both. I think it's probably...
there we go.
Okay, that's weird. That fixed it?
Yes.
All right, so the old flip it and flip it back thing works perfectly. Great.
Good.
All right. Oh, somebody's really close there. Oh, Steve is saying sounds like it might have been on a different mic. Okay, so anyway, that's enough introduction to me. Is anybody already a subscriber to the podcast?
No, but we will be.
Well, wait and see whether the show's any good, though, first. Let's do that. Steve is saying it sounds like I'm on an internal mic is what it sounds like. Oh, you know what? That's my webcam. Hang on a second. That is, wait, no, audio, that one. Yeah, that I just put on my webcam. Let me. Yes. And is it good or bad now?
No, now you're back to static again.
Okay, all I heard was everybody screaming. Bad, must be.
It's a little garbled and staticky now.
Okay, you know what we're going to have to do? Okay, hang on. This is why I wanted to practice ahead of time. We are going to do one more thing here. Just bear with me for a moment. Select the source, select... Now type application. So what I'm going to do is we're going to not be on my good mic because apparently there's something funny going on with that. I'm going to output that to SoundCloud 2 channel. I'm going to hijack that. I'm going to stop hijacking me. And okay. Now, how does it sound now?
A little better, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this fancy microphone because I am now talking. Actually, no, I need to do that because that's how I can hear. So I'm actually coming out of my webcam now, so the audio won't be as good, but it'll be better for you guys. So that's all that matters.
Good.
All right, enough talking about this. Oh, I should say I really like a lot of questions because this presentation will be about 6 minutes long if you don't ask a lot of questions. So when somebody has a question, holler out, and hopefully I'll be able to hear you. And the way we have this set up, if you guys make a lot of noise, you guys come full screen to me, so I think that's going to help. Nope, I'm not going to be able to see that you did that, so you're just going to have to holler. I think about it as soon as I start screen sharing. So I'll flip back and forth between screen sharing and not screen sharing. All right, here we go. See if this works twice in a row. And can you see my presentation?
Yep.
Yes.
Yay, it's a miracle. Okay, like I said, the presentation is called Avoiding Digital Disaster or Life After Death. I originally gave this at Macworld, like I said, in January, I guess it was, or no, it got delayed this year. Anyway, I've given it a couple times since, and people seem to like it in spite of the dire title. The inspiration for this came from Tim and Alice Verporten. Tim was a podcaster, one of the greatest men to walk this earth. He did a show called the Mac Review Cast for many, many years, and I was a regular contributor to the show, and through Macworld, I got to know his wife, Alice. Unfortunately, well, actually, the important thing to know about the two of them is that Tim was a geek, and Alice is not a geek. Now, I'm guessing that most of you guys in the audience are probably the geeks in the family.
Sorry, we lost your audio there.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Oh, now you're back.
There you are, back now.
Okay, so, boy, this is going to be challenging, not knowing when you can hear me. I'm guessing that many of you in the audience are the geeks of the family?
Yes.
So this is really oriented towards you, towards the geek, because unfortunately, Tim passed away last year, and Alice was faced with a giant office full of electronic equipment, digital equipment, and dealing with his digital life. And by not a geek, I mean really, really, really not a geek. She called me up on the phone and she said, I don't know what to do with Tim's stuff, like his Mac. And I said, well, all right, maybe we could do a screen share where I could help you figure out what's on there. And, do you know how to use Skype? And she said, oh, no, honey, I disconnected the internet. The minute he died, she shut off the internet. She packed his computer up and put it in the garage. And so I'm thinking, well, how do I help her figure out what's on that drive if I can't see it? And she was in Wisconsin, and Tim was part of the Mac Roundtable. There's about 15 or 20 of us in the Mac Roundtable, and none of us lived within 6 hours of her. So we couldn't quite figure out what to do to help her. She said one of the other things she was worried about, she said that Tim kept his office locked. That's how much she was not allowed to go in his computer stuff or his kids. And right after he passed away, her daughter went in and grabbed up all of his microphones and sold them, one of them for $20. He had a $300 Heil PR40 in his office. So she knew she was losing money and she needed money and she was really concerned about the stuff and she really needed somebody who understood what all this stuff was to tell her what to do with it. So her solution was and it would be really cool if the slide would advance. She shipped 22 moving boxes to Steve and me. She simply paid people.
So we lost you.
Oh dear. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh boy, this is going to be fun. Her solution was she shipped 22 moving boxes to Steve and me. $2,800 in shipping costs.
Oh.
So she basically paid Mayflower to go into her husband's office and simply grab every single thing that was in that room and put it in a box with nothing discerning what was inside, no judgment whatsoever about what any of this stuff was, and said, "Can you sell it for us?" So realize not only do we have to figure out how to make money off of all the stuff she sent us, we have to make more than $2,800 or she's in the hole. So this is Steve and my friend Dorothy on day one. I really don't know. Dorothy must have been dropped on her head as a child. She volunteered to help us with this. So she came over, and Steve and I and Dorothy started trying to collate all this stuff and figure out what was good and worth selling, and in a lot of cases try to even figure out what it was. Hopefully the audio is going to hold up. I have a little video of where we were at the end of the first day. Okay, so we're just about done with day one, and I don't know. What do you think, Dorothy? You think we're pretty good, right? We're good shape.
Yeah, we're really good.
I might want to buy that.
You should
Okay,
take a
so let's
picture
keep
of the
going
box
here.
of software.
That is actually a box that has been collated and tagged, and that one's ready to go. We got bags over here. We got speakers galore. This is the table of misfit toys. We don't know what any of that stuff is. And then we've got
Tim like
manuals.
keyboards.
Obsessed with keyboards. So I would love to be able to be watching you right now, but for your own enjoyment, I'd like to see a show of hands, or like everybody see a show of hands. How many people would have had the same level of crap if they had sent it out? I don't even need to look. You're all raising your hands, aren't you? I do want to verify something. Steve asked me to check to make sure. John, have you clicked on me to make sure my video always stays in front?
Yes, so right now we just have the presentation.
Good, good. Okay, it's not flipping back and forth. He thought that might have contributed to the audio. All right. So we're going to talk about a few key areas to consider as you look forward to what would you do to the Alice in your life if something happened to you. I want you to think about who could access your passwords if something happened to you. What services should continue if you were incapacitated or even worse? Let's not even have you die. Let's say you're not dead, you're just in a coma for a couple months. What kind of things would you want to make sure continued or didn't need to continue if something were to happen to you? So what kind of services would be important to you? And how organized are your electronics? I believe we've already established not at all. And what kind of things could you maybe document to protect your interests and help your friends out to just, you know, give them a fighting chance? You know, Alice probably could have sent us maybe a third of that. We would have made the same amount of money as we went through it. Oh, I should tell the punchline to that whole story is that Steve and I cleared about $2,500 or $3,000 beyond the $2,800 in the end. But it took us 4 months. Let's start with who knows your passwords. Oh, by the way, remember the part at the beginning where I said ask questions? Be sure to ask questions, right? All right, so... There. Okay, we all right now?
Yes.
Settle down, everybody. All right, so who knows your passwords? This came up with Alice constantly. For example, this is a beautiful little MacBook that Tim had that had a 250 gig Apple SSD in it back before SSDs were popular. It was a special made-to-order laptop. Would have been worth a lot of money, but there was a lock on it. And we had to pay a locksmith to hack it off with a Dremel tool. It ended up damaging the laptop, bending the side of it. You know, definitely reduced the resale value on this. So had she known that little 4-digit passcode, then we would have not had to lose, I don't know, I think we paid the guy $75 to hack this thing up. So if you're not already using a password manager, you really should be. Give me a show of hands and then somebody tell me what percentage of the audience raises their hands. Are you using a password manager of some sort, LastPass or 1Password?
I'd say less than a fourth.
Less than a fourth, okay. So at the last presentation, I actually went sideways a little bit and talked about password managers because these, wow, now I'm getting an echo.
Oh, I was hoping you could see the audience, but I guess that won't work.
Oh, it's because Steve brought it in. Now your audio is coming through, Steve.
I can mute?
Okay.
I don't think it's going to work.
Okay. Sorry, Steve was bringing his laptop in, but he's echoing back through it was what was going on. So there are two really, really good password managers out there, LastPass and 1Password, and these are the greatest things ever invented. As humans, we are absolutely horrible at two things. Number one, remembering passwords, and number two, creating unique, difficult passwords. We're just terrible at it. There's absolutely no reason. Oh, cool. Steve has brought you in on a second computer, so I can actually watch you guys. Oh, and I'm all muted. Oh, this is lovely. So I can see who's falling asleep and who's texting. Now you guys got to get on your best behavior there. Oh, this is perfect. Thanks, Steve. So with LastPass and 1Password, you create a single final password that is the only one you're ever going to need to remember. And inside LastPass or 1Password, you store all of your information. You can store credit cards. You can store identities about yourself. What do you call software license keys. I've got something like 123 software license keys that I wanted to keep track of that I used to have in some cruddy little Excel file. Now they're all inside my password manager. The nice thing is both of these are really, really good options. I did a segment on my show, and it's also in a blog post now, that shows where I went through the benefits of the two of them, because I used LastPass for several years, and I've now switched to 1Password. If you have an iPhone 5S or higher with the the fingerprint ID, Touch ID, you go to a website where you need to log in. You simply put your thumb on the Touch ID, and your password is entered. You don't even have to know what your passwords are anymore. And I'm sure a whole lot of people are getting real queasy going, oh, I'm not going to trust these people. But the problem is that we are much less trustworthy than these sites. We have non-unique passwords. We use the same password everywhere. We use bad passwords because they're easy to remember, they're easy to guess, and that's how so many people are getting hacked. It's not that you're stupid, it's not that you're lazy, it's just that humans are really, really, really bad at this. So if she had been using a password manager, and if she had shared that master password with someone he trusted, even if it wasn't her, someone, then we would have been able to get into his accounts, and things would not have gone as badly as they did. Because more and more things started to go down the toilet than her sending $2,800 worth of boxes to our house. Like I said, I did a comparison of these two. My personal favorite now is 1Password, just because of the really slick interface with the iPhone. It's really a tremendous way to work. If you guys would like a presentation on 1Password and LastPass, that's something I'm considering creating. If that's something you guys want at a later date, we could definitely do that, so you can see how they work. I did just do a tutorial on, I haven't published it yet, it's going to go up soon, on how to move from LastPass to 1Password. Any questions on any of that?
Well, we have one question.
Yeah.
If you're using the fingerprint or thumbprint on the 5S, what happens if you're dead? Does it still work?
No, it does not work, but your master password still will work.
Good question.
You have a master password, and you can use your thumbprint. The thumbprint is convenience. The single long strong password is the one thing you do need to give to somebody. One of the things Steve and I did with LastPass was we actually put each other's LastPass password in each other's vault. So I can get into his and he can get into mine, but neither of those are shared publicly. There's another question, I think.
We had one more question in the front here.
Playing the devil's advocate for just a moment, you mentioned trusting these organizations or companies, and I understand what you said and agree to that extent. However, it seems like every single day we're learning of a new company or organization or application that we, quote, could trust, and something goes awry.
Yep.
Where do we stand?
So here's two things I know for sure. LastPass, the people who created LastPass shared their encryption algorithm with a guy named Steve Gibson, who is a prominent security expert. They allowed him to go in and look at the source code of how they're working with your data, and he was able to confirm that they do not have access to the unencrypted vault. So the vault where you keep all your passwords is encrypted, and they don't have the keys to get in it. He was able to confirm that if you lost your last password, you would never get into it because they can't help you. 1Password has not shared their data with anybody else, but 1Password, one of the ways you can use it is you can store your vault locally on your machine, and it's not on anyone's server. LastPass, your data is on their server, and you access it through a web browser. 1Password, you have control of where that vault lives, so you can keep that vault on your own computer. A lot of people keep it in Dropbox or iCloud, because if you do, then you can get to it from your iPhone. So if you don't keep it on your in Dropbox or iCloud, I see you shaking your head. If you don't keep it on Dropbox or iCloud, then you can't get to it when you're on the road. You cannot get to your passwords from your iPhone, because it doesn't. There's no way for it to get to it unless it is on the web. Now again, that is an encrypted ball of data that is accessible only to you through your password. The thing I would think about is you're really starting to deal with probabilities here. What is the probability that they will be hacked versus what is the probability you will use a bad password? The probability that you'll use a bad password is 100%, and I can say that because I had really bad passwords. When you go into using this, one of the things you can do is you can have it run a security check, and it'll show you how good or bad your passwords are. How easy are they to hack, and how many times have you reused the same password? In my case, actually, I'm gonna flip over to me for a second, just because I'm talking for a long time. So in my case, I started using the LastPass, and I went through and I changed all of my really, really important passwords, and I followed the rules. I said, okay, I'm going to make them all really strong, and I had a horrible score to start with. It was just awful. And but then there were some things I didn't really care about, like my Skype password. You know, if my Skype account got hacked, I didn't really care. I could have another name in Skype. It wasn't a big deal, so I didn't change it. I had it my stupid password I'd used everywhere. Then a site called Gawker Media got hacked, and they released the unencrypted usernames and passwords for all of the people who'd ever created an account there. And I was one of the people who had created an account there, and I had that same stupid password. So now they could get into my Skype account. What I had forgotten was that I had set my Skype account up to occasionally use Skype Out, where I could make telephone calls via Skype. And I had it set up to auto-pay through PayPal.
Oh.
So, you know, here's my head thinking, I'm real smart, you know, I don't need that. And I went to the gym and came back, and I'd lost $200. The amazing thing is I happened to go into Skype right then. I don't go into Skype every day. I could have gone weeks without noticing. So it was really, really bad. It was really stupid. So I really think it's important to realize that you are the weakest link, and it's been proven time and time again. There are hacks, but from what we know from these two companies, we believe that the probability of you screwing up is significantly higher than them screwing up. Yeah.
Well, do they have any kind of insurance or bonding or anything to protect you in the event something did happen?
I don't know the answer to that question. Yes, in the back?
What do you think about people going to biometrics, in the sense that if it's a thumbprint, what would stop someone from knocking you out and using your thumb or even amputating your digits?
So amputating your digits is not an issue, because the way the biometric thumbprint works is there actually has to be blood flow. Now, it has been proven that if someone took your thumb and put it into a special polymer to set a mold, and then they were able to replicate in a lab in like 4 hours, 3D printing a model of your thumb with a simulated blood flow through, they were able to open your phone. Now, what's the chances of that happening versus you screwing up? We are absolutely the weakest link in this. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Knocking you out, sure. And taking your thumbprint. What's your biggest problem right now? Is it that someone has the password to your bank account, or the fact that you just got beaten over the head? And so again, that's a real problem. You know, we have a tendency to think about these worst case scenarios, forgetting that a far worse thing has just happened. And that's another thing with your phone, because if you turn on Find My iPhone, and find friends and that sort of thing. I forget exactly how you trigger it. You can remote wipe your phone. You can lock it so they can't get in. So you can protect it after you wake up. It's going to take them a little while to figure out that you are using 1Password. It's going to take them a little while to figure out that you've enabled the thumbprint. They're not going to stand there with you knocked out on the street. You know, again, we look at these crazy scenarios and compare it to the fact that you are using poor passwords right now. You know you're using poor passwords. You're using passwords you've used everywhere. You're using short passwords. They're not hard to remember, hard to figure out. More questions on that?
Only one other thing. Are these companies collecting any data from our systems?
No, they are not.
Okay, thank you.
We have one more question here in the back.
Yeah.
Yep, Paul.
How do you compare 1Password to Dashlane? That was the one that I had originally read the highest recommendations for a couple of years ago.
You know, I just heard of Dashlane the other day. I have no experience with it. I will say this. It's better than whatever you're doing right now.
David, I've been using Dashlane. David did a presentation on Dashlane and endorsed it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, you know, it's a lot of work to test a password manager and not actually use it in your day-to-day life. So I've just done the whole LastPass to 1Password comparison, and it was, you know, it was a lot of work to, you know, live in both camps for a while and make sure every time I made a password, I made them in both and all that. So I have not done that with Dashlane, but if it's got a single password, if it's encrypted, and you get to control where that data is, then that's great. Do they have an integration with the thumbprint ID on the iPhone?
No.
Okay. That may or may not be a big deal to you, but I'm telling you, it has transformed my life. I just go, I want to log in. I go, there's my thumbprint. Boom, I'm in. And in fact, it's the biggest thing pushing me to 1Password over LastPass. I do have to say that the thing that made me start looking at 1Password was I had a little problem with LastPass that is not a prevalent problem, but it keeps happening to me. In your web browser, you can you put these extensions into your web browser, and then that allows you to get to your passwords, and you can tell it when to log you out. So after 15 minutes, it's supposed to log me out if I don't use it. It's supposed to log me out, only it doesn't. So it keeps leaving me logged in. And I've worked with the LastPass people 2 or 3 times, gone back and forth 30 times, and they can't get it to stop happening to me. So I have a laptop. I don't want that thing accidentally staying logged in. That's just a non-starter for me. But it may not happen to you. So again, it's better than whatever you're doing. All right, are we good on that?
We have another question here in the back.
Okay.
Gigi.
I'm reluctant to ask this question because I don't know if you know. Do you know if 1Password works with VoiceOver or not?
I often do know things like that. If I tell you what, give Jonesy your email address or give mine.
I got it.
Send me an email. I can not only test it myself. I'm pretty good at VoiceOver, but I have a large staff of blind listeners who help me with these kinds of things. Can verify. So, in fact, Steve could probably tweet out that question right now, and somebody following him is probably blind because we have a lot of blind followers. I did a presentation at Macworld called Blindfolded, where I actually did the entire presentation blindfolded. I used an iPhone and a Mac.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's.
Our group is very happy to hear that.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's really fun. The iPhone's pretty easy. The Mac really hard. I mean, you can do it, but that was a big challenge for me. But that was probably the scariest thing I've ever presented. Oh, the question was, Steve's asking me. The question was, is 1Password work with VoiceOver? Great. He's going to check on that for us. All right. We will get that answer in a little bit. Twitter's always coming through for us.
Looks like everybody's good here.
We're good? All right. Now, where'd my presentation go? Oh, I got to go here and there. And we'll go back to here. There we go. So I think I have pounded into the ground the idea that password manager is a good thing to do. Now, if there's not somebody you share live, you want to share your 1Password or LastPass with, you could put that in a safe deposit box, and then you've got it permanently stored where, in the event of your death, that someone would be able to get to it. I've heard it suggested to print your 1Password out, cut it in half, and give it to 2 people. But I don't really like that idea because it sort of seems to me like the two of those guys could get together and steal all your stuff. So I'm not sure. If you don't trust them enough to give them the whole thing, I wouldn't give them half of it either. Now, let's talk about your credit cards and passwords. If something were to happen to you, would your credit cards be canceled? And as we go through these slides, I want you to keep thinking about your credit cards and think how important those are to your geek life. So if someone were to cancel your credit cards because you passed away or didn't keep them open when you're incapacitated, a lot of things could go horribly wrong in your digital life. Probably the single bit of advice I got the most after I did the presentation, someone pointed out being really careful about your email accounts. So if you've got a lot of things in the digital arena going, your notifications about those accounts are all going to come through your Gmail, your Yahoo, your Apple Mail, wherever. You need these accounts to stay open. Had Alice, probably the only thing that we really survived this whole thing was the fact that she did not shut his email account off. In fact, she communicated to me through his email account, and all kinds of notifications come through. I mean, if you've got any kind of electronic billing, just everything's connected to your email account, so you've got to make sure that they're going to keep that open. And this is the single biggest reason, if you have your email account with Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, Time Warner, whoever your ISP is, you need to get a new email account. You need to get one with someone who's not connected to your ISP. Because what do you think Alice did after she shut off the internet? It was with Time Warner. She could have shut off his email account if she had done that. Right? So having an email account that's attached to your ISP is a real pain because, and other things go wrong with that too. If you move and you left where Time Warner was and now there's Comcast, you have to get rid of your email address. So do it when you can control it and change your email account over to one of these services, and it doesn't even matter. It can be with Microsoft. I don't care who you put it with, but don't have it be with your ISP because if something happened to you, they're going to shut off your internet access, right? So I think that's probably this was the single biggest thing I got in feedback, and I added to the presentation. Any questions on that?
Got one question here in the back.
Well,
yeah.
AT&T lets you keep your email after even you ditched your service.
I'm sorry, say that a little louder.
AT&T lets you keep your email even after you ditch their service.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. That is good to know. In fact, you know what? I think somebody said that last week when I gave this presentation, that AT&T is the one who would let you keep it. So that's good. Maybe I should put something underneath that for the next time I do this to say, well, they might let you keep it. I still think having somebody independent is the best plan. Is anybody in here doing two-factor authentication? Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, good.
You and one more question.
Okay, one more question?
Yes, so actually it's a comment about Gmail. They have a section in there that if you...
Oh, don't wreck my slide. Shh, shh. You're reading ahead. I've got that later. I stopped just in time. That was close. So, the idea of two-factor authentication is that it's something you have and something you know. So you know your password, but something you have might be your cell phone. So if you turn on two-factor authentication with Google, for example, under certain circumstances, like let's say you want to change your password, you would have to authenticate using a code that they text to your phone. Two-factor authentication gives you an extra level of security. Apple has it with iCloud. You can now used to be able to protect things that had to do with your money, but you can also protect your iCloud account with two-factor authentication, where you get a text message if something really important were changing. If you're just checking your email or whatever in Google or iCloud, they don't ask you for this text message. It's only when you're doing things that could potentially affect your pocketbook, really. I saw a question in the front row.
I was just going to ask you to, before you went through all that, to define two-factor authentication.
Oh, I did. The something you have and something you know. That's what two-factor authentication means. So it's something, a lot of people used to use it or still do. There's a little dongles. What are they called? Somebody yell it up. Secure ID dongles, where it's got a code that's up on screen at all times, and that code is being synced back to a server. And when you go to log into a certain kind of site, you could get that code and your password together would allow you to log in. That's a really advanced type of two-factor authentication. I just realized my video is up twice, or you can actually see me, can't you, in the corner there?
Yep.
That's on Steve's laptop. I was trying to figure out, how am I also there? So anyway, the reason I bring up two-factor authentication is what happens if something happens to you and they got rid of your cell phone and you had two-factor authentication turned on. If you have that, you really want to have somebody else's phone be an alternate ID. So I have two-factor authentication turned on for, I think for Google I have it turned on right now, and I put Steve's phone number in addition to mine. And that way I actually can have, if something happens to me and he were to get rid of my cell phone, he could still get into my accounts. Does that make sense? All right, I'm losing some of the audience. I'm seeing some yawns. We'll get more exciting here. Let's talk about some services that you might have. Where do you store your files? Are you using Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox or Box.net? If you're keeping a lot of your data there, then maybe you want somebody to know about that. And it's not necessarily just the password to it, but for them to know that it's out there. And what would you want preserved? If you are, say, have been doing paperless receipts and you've got everything stored in Google Drive or OneDrive, maybe your spouse or whoever's going to take over after you're gone or while you're incapacitated would need to know that that's where those are and to not let that service go away. Some of these, if you're paying for Dropbox, I remember Tom Merritt said, Dropbox is my hard drive. Because he uses so many different computers, he's always using one of these, he's always using Dropbox. If something were to happen to him and nobody had access to his Dropbox account, everything he had ever done would be lost. So you got to make sure people not only have the password to these services, but understand what's in there and what would be important about that. Any questions on that one? I like the lively crowd with the questions.
Looks like everybody's following.
All right. Another thing to think about is if you're the family photographer and you've got your family photos on Flickr or SmugMug or Shutterfly, one of these kind of services, maybe your family cares about that after you're gone. A lot of people now are starting to put their full resolution photos up on Flickr so that they actually have an offline backup of them. If that's the case, again, you want people to know. You need to document where are those things stored. And should anybody care, if whoever's going to take over as the family photographer would want to know where those things are. Now this one is a little bit more obscure, but since it hit us really hard with Tim, I wanted to bring this one up. If you're geeky enough to be managing something for someone else, if you do website design, in the case of Tim, he did website design for a bunch of different companies, and he didn't tell those people the passwords to their own website accounts. So there's a Remax dealer, a Remax realtor out in Wisconsin who lost their website because of this. I got contacted by a friend of Tim's who was a web developer, and he and I tried together to get his hosting account to allow us to get in and get the password to these accounts so that he could maintain them for these people. And we were unsuccessful at getting them to do that. And so these websites simply disappeared. They lost their domain name and they lost their hosting. Yeah, question?
So the passwords you're talking about related to the websites, are those with your hosting service or with your website developer, or who has those passwords? Which ones are you talking about?
So this is like, let's say for podfeet.com. I buy a hosting account from a company called Bluehost, and I pay them for a server to be there. I pay GoDaddy for the name podfeet.com. That's my domain name service. I have a password into each of these and my credit card attached to these two different companies that pay. One pays for the server, one pays for the name. I'm the only one who knows that. Then if I die, podfeet.com could cease to exist.
So each of them has a password that we don't know about.
Yes.
Right, but if you're not hosting this for someone else, then you wouldn't have this problem. This is if you're running your own you're running a website and you have someone who is your webmaster who maintains these accounts for you. If something were to happen to your webmaster, that's why you would care.
Okay, but I have domains. Mm-hmm. I have a website.
Okay.
Does Better Web Business, who has my domain names, do they have a password I need to know?
I'm sorry, you said they. Steve asked me a question and I lost it.
Yes. Or domains, yes.
Yeah, so if you have someone who created this website for you?
I do have a website someone else created.
Yes, you need to get the password to that account. So if anything happened to them, you would be able to get in.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah, and they may or may not have bought the domain and the hosting from the same
I have a
company.
domain myself. I bought it. I'm everything on it.
Okay, good, good, good. So on the
I'm
hosting
the
service, though.
the agent, everything is in my name.
Okay.
But the website, you're saying they have another password that I need to know.
Correct. When you say website, it's the hosting and the domain name. So you're saying you have the domain name, but they have the hosting account where you're paying them to pay someone who has a server. They may be running the server themselves, in which case you still need a password into your own account.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions on that? That one was really
in the back here. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Several years ago, my husband passed away.
Can you speak up? I can't quite hear you.
Oh, several years ago, my husband passed away. He was a commercial illustrator, so almost his entire career was on his Mac. Can you hear me?
Just barely.
Judy, why don't you come up? Maybe you should go up or stand up. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, if you keep speaking up, I'm good.
My husband passed away. He was a commercial illustrator. Most of his career was on a Mac. I had it downloaded to an external hard drive, but what I'm beginning to realize as I try to open things up is they were done in, the software is outdated and it's not opening. So, how do I?
Well, you'd have to start working by application. So if he was using Adobe Illustrator, for example, you'd have to look at those files. I mean, do you still have the computer that had the applications on it?
Thank goodness I do.
Okay, so you can still open them in the older versions, right?
What?
You can still open these files in the older versions of Adobe Illustrator, for example?
On that computer.
On that computer. Yeah, you'd really have to talk to somebody who knew those applications one by one to know what to do, because in some cases, the newer versions of the software would open them. In some cases, they won't. You have to do a conversion. I can't. There isn't a generic answer to that one.
But Allison, I think it does open up another question, which is beyond the files we've talked about. People have a lot of things on their computers that they've created in programs that someone who doesn't understand that program could go in and want to open a file like Judy's talking about and have no idea what they're doing. I see this file, I've seen my husband had it open, but I don't know what he created it in and all that. So are we talking about creating a digital pathway too for files you created within the computer itself?
I think that would be difficult to do over time because let's say you're taking good care of your health, you're getting a lot of exercise, you're eating your green vegetables, you could be working on that for the next 40 or 50 years. That would be an awful lot of work. I think what I would advise in that case is that maybe you have someone who understands the stuff you understand. If you're an illustrator, for example, you've probably got little illustrator friends that could then help the person with the files later. That would be an easier thing than trying to constantly keep it up to date. Oh, okay, Adobe did this to this, and okay, I've got to make a document that says here's how you do it. That could be a lot of work if you're healthy. Yeah. If you could see the ends real near, maybe you would want to do that. Does that help at all? All right, let's go ahead and keep going. Let me go back here, and we'll go back into this. Okay. The next thing to think about is you guys are all smart enough to be running off-site backups, right? Everybody in the room got CrashPlan, Carbonite, they got a transporter somewhere? If I don't see any hands raising, either you can't hear me or none of you guys have backups.
I have a time machine.
Okay, good. You have Time Machine. Awesome. These services like CrashPlan, Carbonite, there's others, are really, really terrific. CrashPlan is the one I use, and basically you turn it on, you tell it to start backing up to the cloud, and you never have to remember to back anything up. Having a local backup is the #1 first step you should do, and running Time Machine is a great way to do it. You can use Carbon Copy Cloner, you can use SuperDuper. I run a local backup with SuperDuper once a week, but throughout the week I'm also editing things that might matter to me if something were to happen in that drive. Francis Ford Coppola, I think it was him. He had his house broken into, and they stole his computer and all of the backup drives that were sitting next to it. And he lost every screenplay he has ever written. So you are protecting yourself from the single most likely thing to happen. The most likely thing to happen is that your hard drive is going to fail. That happens all the time. They say there's two kinds of hard drives, the ones that have failed and the ones that will fail. That's it. There's only two kinds there are. So if you don't have a local backup, doggone it, go down to Best Buy or Fry's or whatever and buy yourself a little 1 terabyte drive for $70, plug it in, let a time machine start doing its job. At the very least, do that, because that you're really unprotected if you don't have that going. If you want to look into offsite backups, like I said, CrashPlan is absolutely spectacular. It's easy. It's inexpensive. One of the cool things it does, if you don't like the idea of your data in the cloud, which more and more people are nervous about, you can back up to a hard drive and then drive that hard drive to a friend's house, and you can back up to that for free. So you can set up, and they can back up to a hard drive connected to your computer. But that way you don't have to worry about somebody in the cloud having your data, and you can have it at the house of somebody you trust. That's a really terrific solution, and it's free. So basically the cost of that second hard drive, another $70, you can back up over the internet to somebody else's house. I'm not as familiar with Carbonite, how that works, but the reason I put the slide together was to think about if you have backups running, and this is, if you're dead, you probably don't care about your backups, but if you're still alive, you probably do care that somebody makes sure that these services continue to be paid for. Again, you've got CrashPlan, you're paying, I forget what it is, $7 a month, $10 a month, I think, for a whole family. If you have that going, you really care that it continues going. So if your credit card got canceled, if your email account got canceled, that notification would never come to that person who's taking care of your affairs. So you do need to make sure that that's covered too. I think I see a question.
Would you mind explaining one more time about that secondary backup on CrashPlan?
The one at somebody else's house?
Right. Give the sequence of that again, please.
So you download the free CrashPlan software, and you tell it to back up. Well, you can simply take the easiest way to do it is to actually, let me go out of full screen mode here so I can see you guys. So the easiest thing to do is to download the CrashPlan software. You buy an external drive and you tell it to back up to that external drive. Then you take that drive and you take it to somebody else's house. They install CrashPlan at their house. You tell your CrashPlan to talk to their CrashPlan, and it backs you up to that drive. Now, the reason why I want to do it at your house first is because it's going to take a long time. You know, even over USB 3, it could take, hours and hours and hours to download your entire contents of your hard drive to this hard drive. So you want to do it locally and then pass it over to them. I did it to backing up online to the CrashPlan service. I had about 500 gig of data, so it took 28 days for my data to get up there. You can also, with the CrashPlan service to them, you can have them, you can seed a hard drive and then send it to them, so it wouldn't have taken as long. But I chose to do it that way because I wanted to see how long it would take.
So basically you're just saying that your hard drive at your local location is talking to another hard drive someplace else and backing it up in a secondary spot.
Exactly, exactly. Okay. So that takes care of fire, flood, theft, earthquakes, as long as you don't put it in the same place, tornadoes, as long as you don't put it right where the same tornado happens to hit. But, again, you're working with probabilities. If you want it to be someplace easy and quick, you send it to a neighbor down the street. If you want to be a little more tricky, you send it to mom in Oklahoma, and that way it's a different tornado or something, We're all dodging it every day, right? Any other questions on that? The other thing I brought up was transporter. Oh, yeah?
How many, how much of a space can you get in these things? I have several terabytes of photographs.
There is no limit. And you can even do network-attached storage devices. So, like right now, I have a Drobo with around 3 terabytes worth of data, and just for grains and giggles, we're thinking of turning on CrashPlan to that, too. So yeah, there. Believe it or not, there's no limit. You pay either as an individual, and now I'm talking CrashPlan specifically. The other, you have to check into the other ones. But CrashPlan, I've got links, by the way, at the end of this to all the different services I talked to. I'm pretty sure I have CrashPlan in there. At CrashPlan, you either pay for an individual or a family license. And so I have a family license, so every single Mac on my network is backed up to there, automatically running. I get little reports. Like if let's say, one of the things I don't want it to do is to back up while I'm on travel. So I don't want to be on hotel Wi-Fi or on my MiFi when I'm on travel. I don't want to use that data. So it actually automatically doesn't run when I'm on these other networks. And then I'll get a notification after 3 days saying, hey, you haven't backed up, which is really good to know that it's watching for that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
We have one more question. Gigi.
Yeah.
Crashplan.com or something?
Yeah, crashplan.com. You can go in and see all the different kinds of plans they have, and it took me a long time to get around to it. It was one of those things I was like, oh, I should do it. I know it's really a good thing to do. But then once I did, it was really easy. You just go, back me up, and it starts. And it runs in the background, and the one thing I do have to remember is to shut it off when I'm doing calls like this, and I think I forgot. But so far, we look like we're doing okay. All right, let's go back to screen share. I'm so glad we got this worked out to get this to go. So the point of this chart, I also brought up the transporter. Transporter is an interesting device. I'm not real bullish on it. I bought one and I sent it back, but the idea of a transporter is you pull that little thing off the top above the blue circle, and you stick a hard drive in, and then you give one to a buddy of yours, or your buddy buys one, and you can back up to each other. So kind of like CrashPlan, but it's kind of a nicer, cleaner interface. What you might want to make sure someone knows, if you're using something like Transporter or CrashPlan to back up to somebody else's house, you want your loved ones to know that you're doing that. Because let's say you've done this with a buddy of yours with CrashPlan, you want to make sure that your family knows not to just sell that Transporter off because it's got your buddy's data or that drive that you've got, right? You need somebody to know that that's not theirs to throw away. That's a really important feature. Oh, one other cool thing about CrashPlan that's also true of Transporter is there are mobile apps too. So because my entire hard drive is backed up to CrashPlan, I can get to that data from my iPhone and my iPad because I can log into my CrashPlan account because I've got 1Password on my phone. I can touch my Touch ID. I can log in and I can see all of my data. So I can get to everything that's on my hard drive is backed up constantly, so I know everything I need to get to, I can always get to it from my mobile devices.
Okay. We have a question in the back.
I just want to say I use Carbon Copy, and it also has a mobile for your backup, so that you can go to somebody else's computer.
So Carbon Copy Cloner, I think I heard, does the same kind of thing as CrashPlan to back up to somebody's computer, and you have a backup of that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. That's excellent. Good to know. I have used Carbon Copy Cloner a little bit. I tested it, but I've been using SuperDuper at home. Yeah, question in the front?
So am I understanding you to say that when you back up to the secondary site, you're not backing up to your own individual hard drive you've taken over there. It's in combination with their data on their...
No, it's directly to your disk.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, let's say I've sent mine to Jonesy's house. Jonesy sent his to my house. Now, if if something happens to me, my family shouldn't throw away Jonesy's hard drive.
I see what you're saying. Good. Okay.
I would be very sad.
I misunderstood what you said. All right, thank you.
It's very sensitive about that kind of thing. So, all right. Now, this one seems really silly. Okay, you've passed away. Who cares about your Tumblr account or your Pinterest account or Instagram or whatever? That seems really, really silly, but it turns out it's not silly at all. Tim Verpoorten was probably one of the kindest, sweetest, most gentle Christian men I've ever met in my life, and after he passed away, his account got hacked on Twitter and it started sending out porn spam.
Oh.
It was horrible, and everybody knew that I was taking care of Tim's account, so they were all writing to me saying, you've got to make this stop. You have to make it stop. Tim would hate this. And we couldn't make it stop until Alice got his death certificate, sent his death certificate to me, and then I had to fill out paperwork and put it in an envelope like it was 1972 and mail it to Twitter and wait 3 weeks for them to shut it off. Had he had 1Password or LastPass, we would have had, and had she had the password account, we could have changed that password and fixed it instantly. Instead, we had to go through a death certificate. You know, it was just horrible. Everything about it was awful. You need to think about those social services, and maybe some of these you would want to have keep going. For example, with Facebook, there is a way to do an account, to change an account into a memorial account after someone passes away, which kind of gives people a place to say how much they cared about the person, that sort of thing. So it seems silly to think about these social services, but they've really become an awfully big part of our lives these days. Any questions on that? I love the questions, by the way. This is awesome. All right.
Just curious, on the Facebook thing on changing to memorial account, is that something that's easy to do, or you have to provide a death certificate and all that?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question. I should look into that. I don't know how that's done, but I know people have successfully done it. Yeah, you wouldn't want that to be easy to do, like, ha ha, I made that guy dead. It's funny at the time. I bet there's kids in college who've thought of doing that, right? And now this is the chart the gentleman in the back was going to talk about, I bet. Am I right?
Yes.
So this is the Google Inactive Account Manager, and this is one of the coolest things. Basically, you go to the Google Inactive Account Manager, and you tell it, if I don't come and mess around in one of my Google accounts for, say, 3 months or 2 months, you ought to send me a little note and ask me if I'm still kicking, if I'm still around, do I still want this account? And if I don't respond, mine, I think it shows there, I set it for 6 months. If I don't respond, here is who I want you to contact in my absence. So I have given Steve's contact information to Google to say, if I don't check in, you need to talk to this guy about my account, and he'll tell you what to do with it. So it's a really, really slick thing. Again, the link to this is on the last page. So it's a really good way to have people be able to control your account. I wish every service had this. This is a really, really slick thing. Any questions on that?
Do you have to do that by account? Or are you able to
Yes. Yeah, you would have to do it by account. Now, you don't have to do it by like one for Google+, one for Gmail, one for YouTube. You do it once, in my case, for NoSilicast.
You have multiple Gmail accounts.
Yeah, you would have to do it separately because they are separate accounts, yeah.
All right.
All right, now let's talk about your stuff. All right? There's some stuff you could keep from happening to your loved ones. One of the things you could do is keep a geek inventory of what's important to you. You can actually do this with your password manager. Remember, we talked about LastPass and 1Password. They have secure notes, so you could enter the date you purchased something, the purchase price. That would let people know whether this was something important to you. That might be able to help you out with warranties. You go, oh, you know, when did I buy that TV? It would at least give your family a clue whether something was valuable. Since I did these charts, I had mentioned something called Home Inventory. Somebody told me about it during one of the presentations. Home Inventory is a wicked cool, super, super fun application, especially if you're anal. It's $20 on the Mac, and it lets you walk around with your iPhone and take pictures of or import pictures from a real camera. You take pictures of your stuff, you suck it into Home Inventory, and you enter warranty information when you purchased it, and you can keep this home inventory by where the things are in your house. I've inventoried my DVDs. You can create separate categories and collections. Like here's my Star Trek DVDs are separate from my regular DVDs. It's really a super fun way of keeping track of your stuff. I did a video for Don McAllister's Screencast Online that you can get through one of the magazines if you really want to go see it. He's got a magazine where he puts all the videos. Where I explain how to use Home Inventory. It is a fabulous, fabulous application. It's super fun and a great way to inventory your stuff so people would actually know what it was. And again, this would have helped Alice tremendously if she'd had access to something like this or known it existed. So do you like to be that guy that has that thing that other guy needs? You know, you wish, you're the guy that has that SCSI connector that you just know somebody someday is going to say, oh man, does anybody have, right? If you're that guy, what if you were to just write crap on one box, not crap on the other box? Now, this sounds really stupid, but I opened boxes that were like a box of floppies from Tim. I opened it, went nope, and closed it. That's all I did. That box probably cost her $100 to ship to me, but if I had written crap on it at some point in time, it would have been separate. I actually did this. I went into my closet where I keep the crap, and I wrote crap, 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 crap. Oh, not crap. And there's one not crap box, but the rest is crap. And, you know, I like to be the guy that's got that stuff.
Okay.
What's that? Oh, yeah, Steve wants me to remind you, one of the things that she shipped to me was a box of printer paper.
Oh, no.
How much did that cost? I gave it away as party gifts when people came to my house. Here, have a ream of paper. Have a ream of paper on Tim. It would have been really, really good if he had done just this simple little thing. This is a picture. These are the ones that were left over when we were done. This is not how many we had. We brought these things in, and it was like playing match game. Dorothy would hold up some gizmo and say, hey, okay, it's got a round connector. It's kind of a big one. Looks like it might need to be this. Anybody find the connector, the adapter that goes with that? It was a nightmare. It was kind of funny, but it was a nightmare. So Steve and I hit on the idea of labeling our power supplies. Yes. Now, this is actually the benefit of you, too, because now when I'm crawling around under my desk, if I'm looking for the 1 terabyte Seagate, I know there's going to be a sticker on it that says 1 terabyte Seagate under my desk. I did this presentation, like I said, at Macworld, and Trek Joyner said that I was all fancy pants with my little label maker. He said, I just use a Sharpie, and I write it on there. Now, that's faster, and a couple people said you might run into problems with the power supplies heating up, and maybe that sticker would peel off. I've not had that problem. But you might want to just get a Sharpie and scribble it on there. Steve and I are way too anal to have a Sharpie. We have to have it in sharp text that we can read. We need it that way. But this is something that will help you and would help somebody else if something happened to you. You guys see a question in the back?
Yeah, paint the label with whiteout on the plastic and then use the Sharpie so you can read it when you've got black on black.
Well, if you'll notice, that's a silver Sharpie. I had the same question, and he said, well, I have a silver Sharpie. I was like, good, you fancy, you and your silver Sharpie, but you actually can buy those. So either way, if you just label it, you've got to. I mean, how many times have you gone? Okay, what does this go to? Yeah. So if anybody needs a power supply, I probably still have one.
And then how are you labeling these? There are some cables and that are just so thin and have such little tiny pieces on the end.
Oh, well, let's take a look at my next slide, shall we? One of the things I did this is really for you. This isn't going to help anybody else. One day I got sick and tired of my giant pile of cables, and every time I needed a micro USB cable, I had to pile through everything. I took all my cables, I threw them out on the floor, I sorted them, and I put them in Ziploc bags and put a label on them. Now, when I need a network cable, I only have to dig through maybe 10 cables instead of 100. It was one of the best time-saving things I've ever done. And Steve hardly ever emulates things I do. As soon as he saw this, he went, oh, I'm so doing that. And he labeled his. He put them in Ziplocs. It's really hard to do it on the actual cables. But I have audio cables, FireWire cables. I have mini USB, micro USB. I've now separated my network cables into Cat 5 and below, and my Cat 6 and above. What is Steve showing? Oh. Steve wants to show that, yes, indeed, you actually can label on with his label maker. There it is.
That's not good video. Yeah.
I know it's not as good a video, but he wanted to show you that that was his microphone. Or wait, what does it say, mic?
It's my microphone cable.
That's a mini USB cable. He's got it labeled mic. Don't listen to him. Hey, whatever works for you, right? This one really isn't for anybody else. This is for you. This is a bonus gift you get with purchase here today. I love this. This is probably one of the most happy-making things I've done.
What does FTW stand for?
For the win.
For the win. Zippered bags for the win.
This is kind of a random one, but you know those little tags that come on the bags of bread?
Yeah.
Those can also clip on to cables, and you can use your Sharpie to mark on the tag.
Oh, that's a good idea. You're talking about the little plastic square ones, right?
Yeah, it has to be the square ones.
Yeah, the green twisty ones, not so much.
Not so much.
All right, let's go through a checklist here. So you want to tell your friends and family what credit cards are tied to what services. Again, you can do this through your password manager. You're all going to run out and get after this. Tell them to keep your email account open for a year, because they really are going to need to get those notifications of all the different services. Maybe their favorite magazine isn't going to come in the mail because they canceled your email account and that got discontinued. Tell them to keep your cell phone active, but if you're doing two-factor authentication, that's going to be critical to keep that going. Tell them if you care about your photos in the cloud, make sure they pay those bills. Tell them what you have in iCloud. Make sure they pay those bills in your cloud storage, not just iCloud, but any kind of cloud storage. And tell them if someone else depends on your cloud storage. Make sure you tell them about websites you own specifically, especially if you do this for anybody else. Make them keep your backups running if you care about that when you're incapacitated. Set up that Google Inactive Account Manager. The thing is, you can make a decision now on what happens to your account and save them some grief for later. By the way, I should have said this at the beginning. I'm going to give you a link to these slides so you don't have to keep them all. You'll be able to download them. Everybody frantically taking pictures of the screen. If you have a password manager, please give someone else access to it and tell them that you did it. One of my favorite ones, when I gave this presentation, I was talking to my friend Robert and his wife Lorelei, and I said, Lorelei, you're not the geek, he is. Do you have access to all of his passwords? And she looks at him and says, do I? Well, that's not going to be very useful, right? Sort those cables into zippered bags with labels just for the fun of it, and get yourself a label maker, a silver Sharpie for your power supplies, and definitely label your boxes crap and not crap, just for the love of your family. Yeah, question?
Would you mind putting back the first page of that checklist for just 1 second?
Want a picture of that? Like I said, you'll be able to download all these slides.
Yeah.
I have another question here.
That I use that kind of help me out, and it helps. And it kind of I use got rid of all of like Dropbox and all of those, and went to a home database, a cloud. So I use my cloud, and it has everything for your your PC, your Android, your iPhone, and therefore, if I died, my wife could just go to the case and then use that, and they have everything there, and then I don't have to pay extra for any more storage either because I've got 2 or 3 terabytes. So that way, I don't have to worry about it.
That was
That's not a bad solution. You're only getting part of what cloud does for you, though. You are losing the ability to save your stuff if something happens at your house. So if that tornado, earthquake, flood, fire, theft happens, you've just lost everything.
Of course, I use carbon copy.
To someplace else.
Right.
Okay, yeah, then you're good. All right, yeah, that's great. As long as your spouse knows that that's there and what's important about it, that's an excellent solution. All right, again, you're going to get all of this in the slides, but this is my link farm of doom, and this should show, yeah, there's crash by a carbonite transporter. This is a live link. It just says, I wouldn't take a picture of this. It's not going to do you any good. Support.google.com is not going to get you to the Google Inactive Account Manager, but when you download the slides and you click on that, it will take you to the correct page. The Facebook memorial request, I did look up the link of how to do it, and home inventory, that's a direct link to that application I talked about. So this is what you really want to take a picture of. If you go to slideshare.net/nosilicast, you will be able to get to all of the presentations, all of the slides that were presented today, and any other previous presentations I've done. I always put them up there. I share my slides under a Creative Commons license. That means you can do anything you want with these slides as long as you give me credit. That's all I care about. You don't have to pay me, but you have to give me credit. And if you use any of my content, the presentation you put it in has to also be under that same license. You have to share it with other people. You have to allow other people to play with your content. That's what my license agreement says. So let's stop presenting. There we go. I also said here, my email address is allison@podfeed.com. I love feedback. I love, on my podcast, I have a segment called Dumb Question Corner. This is a fabulous segment that people really, really like. They're always sending me questions saying, hey, I got a dumb question. The idea is no question's too stupid, what you've always heard before, but I will try to answer every question you send. If it's really hard and complicated, I may send you over to my Google Plus community. And that might be because there's smarter people than me there. So what I'm really looking for is the dumb question that you don't know the answer to. And if you ask it, probably somebody else will end up getting help because you asked that question. So we have a lot of fun in that. Again, my show is at podfeet.com. I'm on Twitter at Podfeet, Podfeet everywhere. Any other questions?
How frequent, do you have a regular podcast that you do as well?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, this is my regular podcast is called the No Silicast. It comes out every Sunday night at about 8 o'clock or so. It's audio only, but you can watch me create it live at podfeed.com/live. And let's see, I can bring this. Let me bring this back over. You must not have been here at the very beginning because I showed this.
We were just. I was sorry. I apologize. Yes.
Oh no worries. I don't mind plugging it twice. That's a good excuse. So. This is my website at podfeet.com. Hang on just a second. Steve's asking me something.
Jadil answered about 1Password.
Oh, 1Password? What do you say?
You might want to just read it.
Okay.
Answers.
We got 2 answers on whether 1Password was accessible over VoiceOver. Jadil Sotomayor says yes. They have a very interesting bug, however. You cannot edit any field except the password field. Other than that, it's a very accessible application. I use it all the time.
You can't edit what? I'm sorry?
The password section.
They said there was a bug where the only thing you can edit using 1Password. Now he must be talking about the iOS app.
I think so.
Because he's got to be able to do it on the Mac. Ask him whether he means iOS or the Mac. We'll get that back to you. So let's see. I was plugging my podcast. So this is the No Silicast Mac podcast. If you go to this link right here that says No Silicast Live, if I tap on that. If the show were live, and it actually, normally this video would be me creating the podcast, but right now if I were to click that, you would be watching this very presentation we're watching right now. So I set this up as a Google Hangout on Air, and it's broadcasting through that. We have a live chat room where you can click start over here, and you can chat with the other people watching. It's kind of a funny thing because it's not the real show, it's the making of the real show. So you end up seeing me muff up and, re-record and laugh at the audience, and it's actually really, really fun. That's kind of for the Uber fan. You can get to all of my videos here. Steve and I do a lot of travel to conferences, and we create videos where I interview people. Every one of these is a link to an interview at a lot of these are from Macworld. We did about, 25 videos. Steve does a lot of work on those. And like I said, down here you have access to all of my tutorials. If you just click on podcasts here, then you get just the podcast episodes. Uh-oh, those 2 should not have been labeled podcasts. Those are mislabeled. Those should be under blog posts. So I submit a lot of my stuff that I'm going to talk about on the show comes out as separate blog posts throughout the week. And then I do mine, each of those will end up being part of the podcast that I'll be reading those reviews and such. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Lots and lots of Allison. I'm also on a lot of other shows. I'm on Tom Merritt's Daily Tech News show pretty often. I've been on Mac Break Weekly with Leo Laporte. So, yeah, I'm around a lot of places. Any other questions? All right. Well, I think we'll call it. Thank you very much for having me. This was really, really fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Oh.
Thank you very much.
Oh, looks like
Thank you so much.
Steve has one more answer on the question about VoiceOver. Actually, we'll get a full answer to you. If you write to me at allison@podfeed.com, I'll make sure we find out exactly how good it is, what works and what doesn't work for you on VoiceOver. Oh, wait. About the bug. The bug is iOS, and it's and the app is definitely accessible on both iOS and OS X. So let's see, one little more. With that said, the Windows version needs a lot of accessibility improvements, but then nobody cares about Windows.
I was about to say, we don't care about that side.
Absolutely not. All right, thank you very much. I'm going to take us off of live here, and I can still keep talking to you, John, or we can, I can cut it off, whichever you prefer.
I think we're good here. If there's no more questions, thank you very much for presenting to us today.
All right, thanks for staying awake.
Have a wonderful weekend.
That's the question.